In Peru, Williams Zapata from the right-wing Avanza País party was elected as the new president of the Congress. He replaces Lady Camones after she was impeached for alleged influence peddling. In France, Uber Eats delivery drivers protested against the layoff of more than 500 workers, accusing them of fraud. And Russia reached a ceasefire agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan, which came into effect at 9 a.m. local time on Tuesday. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. Peru's Legislative Congress elected its new president on Monday, following the ouster of Lady Camones, who was impeached for alleged influence peddling. Congressperson Williams Zapata, member of the right-wing party Avanza País, was elected as president of the Congress with 67 votes in favor to complete the annual period of sessions 2022-2023. The parliamentary session began at 10 a.m. local time. 6 candidates were nominated and 2 of them passed to a second round. On the other hand, the Peru Libre Party did not support any of the right-wing candidates. After his swearing-in as the president of the Congress, Williams said the acts of the political control must be used in a timely manner and coordinated with parliamentary groups. In Brazil, the Superior Electoral Court denied the existence of an alleged agreement to allow the armed forces to perform a parallel count in the upcoming presidential elections. The court said vote counting is a constitutional responsibility of the electoral justice, and that there is no change with respect to what was defined for the elections in the first semester of the year. The electoral body stated that this year the vote counting system has been improved so that the bulletins are published on the internet after the voting ends for the wide and unrestricted access of all inspection entities and the public in general. According to experts, this disinformation campaign is part of a strategy to discredit the upcoming elections. The 20th meeting of Migratory and Consular Affairs between Mexico and Guatemala was held. This implies a dialogue mechanism in which cooperation issues are addressed and the main problems that both countries share in this matter. The holding of this meeting follows up on the agreements established by Presidents Andrés Manuel López Obrador and Alejandro Giammattei last May. Delegations of both countries reiterated their commitment to continue promoting safe, orderly, and regular migration under a perspective of co-responsibility and with full respect for the human rights of the migrants. The Migratory and Consular Affairs Group was created in 1987, and since then it has met 19 times, the most recent in November 2016 in Guatemala City. In recent months, blackouts marked the lives of the Cubans. The U.S. blockade, fuel shortages, break-in, and lack of spare parts in thermoelectric plants forced the inhabitants of the island to look for alternatives to minimize the consequences of power cuts in their daily lives. Our correspondent in Havana, Lisandra Andres, brings us closer to some of the stories.
One of the most populated in Havana. On blackout days like this one, she has to return home early from work to take advantage of daylight for housework. According to the plan given by the electricity company, Karachi knows that every 3 days, whether it be during the day or at night, there'll be no electricity at her house.
Then it gives us time to plan our cooking schedule in the morning. If we have a blackout in the evening, it gives us time to cook lunch because we have gas from the street. And if at that time we don't have electricity for lunch, we cook it on the stove.
Although she knows what to expect, it is not easy for her to bear the suffocating heat of these months at home, so she has had to change her routine, especially for her son.
Yes, it is a bit complicated. For example, if it coincides with the kindergarten, it doesn't affect me so much. But during the day, I take him to the park so he can be there for a while, playing, and not have to be here in the heat of the morning, locked up in the house.
On the other end of the city, Dalienis Ortega has not escaped the blackouts either. She is the owner of the private cleaning and laundry dyeing company Cubelas Laundry, where half a ton of clothes are processed every day, an important part of which is destined for hospitals and maternity homes. Her company strives to have orders ready in less than 48 hours, but with the blackouts, that may not always be the case.
It has been a challenge to which we've had to adapt. Sometimes there are some workers who arrive at 4 in the morning or who leave a little later. We don't have a schedule. We've had to break the continuous schedule we had, and we've made plans that in turn also affect their daily life. But it's a moment where we all have to contribute, whether it's in time or whatever is necessary to be able to move forward in this moment that is so complex.
During the hours of blackouts, they check deliveries and shipments and use the time for their own business activities, but they are already looking for alternatives to deal with this situation, which is not expected to have an immediate solution.
It would be a good time to make incentives for people, as in this case we who are large consumers, to be able to use clean alternative energies, whether it is the installation of solar panels, the purchase of clean energy by solar farms, or any other alternative that allow us to separate ourselves a little from the electrical system, where we don't have to recharge it.
The Cuban government says it seeks to reduce blackouts by the end of the year through repairs and new investments, and to reduce the country's dependency on fossil fuels, so that by 2030, 37% of the energy supply will be derived from renewable energy sources. Meanwhile, the government is focused on solving thermoelectric power plant breakdowns and carrying out maintenance in the shortest possible time. For now, the only thing left to do is to keep the public informed about possible disruptions and their schedule.
Lisandra Andrés, TeleSUR, La Habana, Cuba.
We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. Around 500 Uber Eats drivers from Africa, many without French working papers, demonstrated in Paris on Monday after the company kicked 2,500 accounts off its restaurant delivery platform that allegedly used fake identities. Many of them say they had been working for years with Uber, claiming the company was well aware that its drivers are often undocumented migrants who use borrowed ID to open their accounts. The US-based company is facing growing pressure across Europe to hire drivers outright as employees, instead of independent contractors, to respect the rights of gig economy, the workers. 2,500 of the roughly 60,000 accounts overall were identified as fraudulent, and drivers whose accounts were blocked could still appeal. Uber and other delivery service operators insist workers are self-employed.
What we want from Uber is better working conditions, better pay for our costs, and above all, we want our regularization, because Uber is abusing us. This abuse is due to the fact that we are in a regular situation, so we are forced to endure all this. It's just we can leave, because we don't have a choice in fact. We don't have a choice. We have to do this job, because if we won't do it, how will we live?
And since the proclamation of the new King Charles III, a few arrests have been made as protesters speak out against the monarchy. The non-profit organization Big Brother Watch rejected the arrests and said that police have a duty to protect people's right to protest, just as they have a duty to facilitate people's right to express support, condolence, or tribute. The group, founded in 2009, highlighted the right to freedom of expression is the cornerstone of British democracy, and at a time when the world's eyes turned to the United Kingdom for Queen Elizabeth II's funeral, to suppress violently these protests goes against the values that define the country. According to reports, during the proclamation ceremony of King Charles III, a woman with an anti-monarchy symbol was arrested by the police for disturbing the peace.
That was before. We haven't had a poll since.
Now we move on to other topics. In Ukraine, it is reported that Zaporizhia is ready to organize a referendum on unification with Russia. The head of the Regional Military Civil Administration, Yevgeny Valitsky, pointed out that the residents agreed that the region should be part of Moscow and that the mission is just a technical moment necessary to move forward. Valitsky also added that Russia is restoring the region's infrastructure, building roads and reactivating plants, paying social services, allowances and pensions. Likewise, a poll conducted last week showed that 71% of the people agree with this decision. Since last March, a large part of Zaporizhia region has been under control of the Russian forces in the framework of the special military operation to demilitarize and denazify the western neighbor. In Ukraine, International Atomic Energy Agency starts consultation on protection zone for Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. The Director General of the organization, Rafael Grossi, pointed out that consultations will be held with the Russian and Ukrainian governments, with a view to establishing mechanisms to defuse the situation at the nuclear power plant. The official stressed that an agreement between the parties is necessary in order to establish such a safety zone. He further clarified that the issues of the militarization of the nuclear zone are beyond his scope. Grossi assured that Ukraine and Russia should agree not to attack the facility and warned of the problems posed by the bombardment of the nuclear power plant. And the President Vladimir Putin said on Monday that Russia is confidently handling the external pressure from the West. He concluded his opening speech by highlighting the importance of maintaining macroeconomic stability.
Russia is confidently handling the external pressure, essentially a financial and technological aggression coming from certain countries. The economic blitzkrieg tactics they were counting on haven't worked, which is obvious to everybody, including them. We have rapidly implemented efficient defensive measures, launched the mechanisms to support key economic sectors, systemic companies, as well as small and mid-sized businesses. Our priority is maintaining macroeconomic stability and resilience. I know that has been discussed day to day. We argue about what needs more attention, what needs more funding or more saving, creating a safety net, how to create it under the new conditions, and what a safety net is in these new conditions with the inevitable de-dollarization process underway.
And Russia reached a ceasefire agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan, which came into effect at 9 a.m. local time on Tuesday. After efforts made by the President Vladimir Putin, Russia urged the parties to the conflict to exercise self-restraint and avoid further escalation. The statement was released by the Russian Foreign Ministry. It details the sharp deterioration of the situation in some areas of the Armenian-Azerbaijani border. Moscow has confirmed that through its foreign ministry, it maintains close contacts with Yerevan and Baku. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Iran's leader, Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei, announced the general policies of the country's 7th development plan, focused on economy. The new plan was developed after consultation with the Islamic Republic System Discernment Council. The priority of the project is the economic progress accompanied by justice, and it defines in 26 articles the programs for 7 areas, among them infrastructure, science, technology, and education. It also estimates an average economic growth of 8% for the next 5 years. Iran reaffirms on Monday its readiness to cooperate with the UN nuclear watchdog after the agency said in a report it cannot assure the peaceful nature of Tehran's nuclear program. The finding last week by the International Atomic Energy Agency further complicated diplomatic efforts to revive a landmark 2015 nuclear deal between Iran and major powers, including the United States. Iran is ready to cooperate with the agency to clear up the false and unrealistic perceptions regarding its peaceful nuclear activities, Foreign Ministry spokesperson Nazer Kinani said in a press conference. Kinani also said no resolution was expected during this week's meeting, but warned that any further unconstructive action by the agency will again have unconstructive results. Atomic Energy Agency Director General Rafael Grossi said he hoped that Iran will start cooperating as soon as possible.
Iran is ready to cooperate with the IAEA to clean up the false and real images regarding its peaceful nuclear activities of the Islamic Republic of Iran. But we stress that cooperation with the IAEA is both in the sense of rights and in the sense of Iran's fundamental Islamic obligations. Just as the IAEA has obligations, it has also rights. However, the Islamic Republic of Iran will adjust any reaction action according to the evolution that will happen in the IAEA.
According to the UN Refugee Agency, Sudanese refugees and their hosts in Chad face challenges in delivering education. With an influx of asylum seekers from Sudan to eastern Chad, the United Nations body and its partners are providing vital support for the education of refugee children. Thousands of Sudanese refugees have fled Darfur to Chad in recent years. The agency has overseen the construction of 2 schools accommodating 2,500 pupils, ensuring children's access to education by including them in the Chadian national education system. But despite these investments, as the camp continues to grow, 10 of the 17 classrooms in the 2 schools are held in the open air due to a lack of available space. On Monday, the United Nations International Labour Organization, ILO, said that 50 million people around the world are trapped in modern slavery.
Brings together 2 different categories: forced labour, which is something the ILO has been looking at for a very long time, and then forced marriage. So you put those 2 categories together and you get the total. And the alarming thing is that we have 50 million people in one of those 2 categories.
Also, the UN had set a goal to eradicate all forms of modern slavery by 2030, but the COVID-19 pandemic, armed conflicts, and climate change forced extreme poverty and more people to migrate.
It would be a mistake to believe that forced labour is solely the problem of poorer countries. Quite surprising to many people. In higher income countries as well, you also find forced labour. And, sexual exploitation is a big part of that as well. So it's a very complex, very varied problem. I think the point that we need to make is no country is irrelevant to this struggle. This brings every country into play.
TeleSUR English continues to grow. Its signal now reaches Europe. You can order it from your cable dealer or tune it yourself. These parameters that you see on the screen are in place since July 1st. Quite soon, further changes will be implemented for the signals in the Middle East and Africa. Now, more than ever, the world connects to us, and our stories are heard in other farther away nations. This news multi-platform will continue providing truthful content to oppose the hegemonic media's narrative and our faithfulness to our audience. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. And you can also follow us on our TikTok account at TeleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.